Numerous Fox News hosts including Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham privately mocked the idea that the 2020 elections were fraudulent. They all mocked Sidney Powell as well. And so did Fox News executives. The text messages and internal communications of Fox News hosts and executives were exposed in court filings by Dominion Voting. Tucker Carlson wrote that all Trump is good at is destroying things. He's the undisputed world champion of that. When Tucker heard that Trump would not attend the inauguration, he wrote, "I'd heard that about the inauguration. Hard to believe. So destructive. It's disgusting. I'm trying to look away." Tucker also worked hard to undermine Sidney Powell behind the scenes. He wrote, "I had to try to make the White House disavow her, which they obviously should have done long before." Laura Ingraham replied, "No serious lawyer could believe what they were saying. As you may all remember, the White House and Rudy Giuliani and the rest of Trump's election lawyers decided to suddenly distance themselves from Sidney Powell. Sidney Powell then began working alone." Tucker also said, "We are very, very close to being able to ignore Trump most nights. I truly can't wait. I hate him passionately." Tucker also said, "Trump has 2 weeks left. Once he's out, he becomes incalculably less powerful even in the minds of his supporters. He's a demonic force, a destroyer. But he's not going to destroy us. I've been thinking about this every day for 4 years." Alex Pfeiffer, the producer of the Tucker Carlson Tonight Show, replied, "You're right. I don't want to let him destroy me either. The Trump anger spiral is vicious." Tucker replied, "That's for sure. Deadly. It almost consumed me in November when Sidney Powell attacked us. It was very difficult to regain emotional control. But I knew I had to. We've got 2 weeks left. We can do this." Sean Hannity said Trump is acting like an insane person. Tucker Carlson said, "Sidney Powell is lying." Tucker also referred to her as an unguided missile and called her dangerous as hell. Laura Ingraham referred to Sidney Powell as a complete nut. It appears the only formula Fox News uses to win over or maintain and/or distract their viewers is mainly racial rhetoric and partisan politics. Fox News is just the right wing while CNN is the left wing on the bird of the New World Order. It is just 2 different flavors of the same conspiracy. Now, just as the shocking private text messages of Fox News hosts began coming to light as a result of the current media reportage on defamation lawsuit documents filed weeks ago by Dominion Voting, private messages which expose the duplicity of Fox News. Tucker Carlson, in response to the shocking exposure of the private text messages of Fox News hosts, recently began the tired old routine of talking about the events of January 6. He is appealing to partisan politics as a stratagem to distract his viewers from the fact that he is a fraud. He is using a series of video clips furnished by Kevin McCarthy to prove the same point that Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene already proved at a news conference held January 6 last year. In that same news conference, Marjorie Taylor Greene denied that Trump won and said it is silly to even suggest she denies the legitimacy of Biden's presidency.
Now that so many audits and other checks have been done, do you acknowledge that Joe Biden won the election and is the legitimate president?
You want to know something? I've introduced 4 different sets of articles of impeachment. I think it's very clear that I think Joe Biden is the president. I mean, if I'm trying to impeach him, I think it's clear that I think he's the president. Yes, he was on January 6th. His electoral college votes were confirmed, and he was sworn in later on in January. I think that's a silly question to ask.
January 6th is old news. Recall that after Tucker angered his viewers by attacking former prosecutor Sidney Powell and legitimizing the Biden presidency, he began attacking the Democrats. Thus, many viewers who had vowed never to watch Tucker Carlson or Fox News again suddenly began watching and speaking favorably of him. His lower view counts then began increasing to the previous levels. Thus, by appealing to political partisanship or using racial rhetoric, he was able to rally back his viewership. They forgot that he is a fraud and controlled opposition. They also forgot that the Republican Party on the federal level refused to challenge the electoral vote count as illegitimate. Fox News is just the right wing on the bird of the New World Order. They program primitive responses. They punch those buttons to make the masses more easily controllable. They limit the intellectual purview of their audience purely to partisan politics and race rhetoric. The groups targeted for racial lampooning don't have a voice. They don't have economic or political power. In Spanish-speaking or Afro-descendant school districts, basically all the administrators are Anglo-Americans, and so are the majority of teachers. None of them live in those areas but commute to those areas. Thus they benefit from all the taxes paid by Spanish surname or Afro-descendant peoples. In addition to benefiting from all federal dollars sent to the public schools, all the business contracts for the school districts are awarded to Anglos. These contracts are worth millions of dollars annually, whereas in predominantly Anglo school districts, you don't see racial outsiders being given food catering contracts or being administrators. Hardly any are even hired as teachers. The supermajority of bureaucrats and politicians in the Spanish surname or Afro-descendant areas are Anglos. The supermajority of hired government workers in those areas are Anglos. Anglos control the local economic policies of other racial groups, just as they do to other nations. Anglos benefit from all the taxes and federal dollars allocated to racial outsider regions. Anglos constitute the supermajority or entirety of police in racial outsider regions. Anglos control all the public delivery systems of propaganda and television media. Anglos are the only group allowed to have and express a public voice. Other racial groups, including Native Americans, don't have a voice. There is no television channel where they can present their own views. The majority of Spanish channels are owned by individuals who don't even speak Spanish. Thus, Spanish surname peoples don't have a chance to present their side of the story on immigration. Anglo-American media doesn't tell you that apprehended undocumented migrants were denied visas for years. Anglo-America doesn't tell you that its exploitation and oppression of the Spanish nations is what provokes immigration. Anglo-America doesn't tell you that its visa policy for Spanish nations is restrictive, and that the average wait time for a visa is 24 years if you are from Mexico. Anglo-America presents the issues of other races out of context. Anglos do not want to accept any responsibility for their own role in the problems they complain about. Thus, Fox News continues to appeal to Anglos who want a more confrontational rhetoric in regards to racial outsiders, whereas CNN appeals to Anglos who want a less abrasive racial rhetoric. CNN and ABC also purport to represent the views of racial outsiders, but they don't. They constantly misrepresent and caricature the positions held by racial outsiders. Thus, they deliberately discredit racial outsiders by making them look stupid. They will frequently refer to incidents as being motivated by racial bigotry even though there is no evidence. And if there is evidence, they will ignore it. They will also get dumbed-down clout chasing racial outsider dupes to repeat or support their irrational rhetoric. In the few instances in which they feature a racial outsider that is not a dupe, they will show a few cherry-picked sound bites to make him look very stupid. Whereas if you listen to that same individual on radio, he will sound intelligent. Therefore, CNN and other Democrat networks have a less abrasive but more effective approach to discrediting other races. They also never mention America's role in causing immigration from Spanish nations.